Imagine you're at the best moment of your life, driving for one of the most prestigious teams in Formula One, and everything is happiness with the love of your life. Everything seems perfect, both on and off the track, until out of nowhere a teenager appears to take away everything you love and everything you fought for your whole life. He takes your spot on the team and in his first race achieves what you never could, a victory.
Max Verstappen, you're a race winner. Fantastic. What a great debut.
Suddenly your world, both personal and professional, starts to fall apart. The blow is devastating, but you find new hope as you and the woman you love celebrate your first daughter's birth. You feel like it's the beginning of a new chapter until fate decides to hit you even harder. Your relationship comes to an end, and as if that weren't enough, the same teenager who took your place in Formula One starts a relationship with your ex-girlfriend, forming a family with her and your son. If I told you this was the plot of a movie, you might think it's too cruel and dramatic to be real. But this is exactly what Daniil Kvyat went through, and that was just the beginning. What happened next completely destroyed him, and his story ended in the worst possible way. And believe me, what he went through inside was much worse than it sounds. So let's start from the beginning. From karting, Daniil Kvyat showed that he was not just any driver. His talent was evident. He won titles, dominated championships, and quickly became the biggest promise in Russian motorsport. It didn't take long for him to catch the attention of two giants: Lukoil, an oil company with enough money to fund his journey, and Red Bull Racing, the most prestigious young driver program in the world. At that time, Red Bull was in full expansion, looking for their next big star, but Kvyat was not the only one in their sights.
Hello, my name is Carlos Sainz Jr. I'm 15 years old, I'm from Madrid, and my sport is racing.
By his side was Carlos Sainz, another talent with big aspirations. Red Bull wanted to know who had the potential to reach the top, so they put them to the test in a single-seater. The answer was clear: both of them were too good to let go. So, Kvyat and Sainz became Red Bull's new prospects. But joining the program was just the first step. The hard part would come later. Kvyat had proven to be an unstoppable force in karting. But now he faced his first big challenge, the single-seater race cars. In 2010, he made his debut in Formula BMW, a category where many future Formula One drivers took their first steps. But the change, it wasn't easy. Going from a kart to a car with more power and aerodynamics is a huge leap. However, Kvyat adapted faster than expected, as he not only scored podiums, but also achieved victories. But he didn't stop there. That same year, he also competed in Formula Renault. There was no time to lose, and Kvyat was willing to speed up his way to the top no matter what. In 2012, all that effort paid off. He was crowned champion of the Formula Renault 2.0 Alps, his first major title in single-seaters. But this wasn't just any title. He won 7 out of 14 races, dominated the season, and made it clear that he was ready for something much bigger. In 2013, Kvyat had a single mission: to prove that he was ready for Formula One. And the opportunity came in Grand Prix 3. The category that served as a direct springboard to the top tier. It was his moment. He couldn't fail, and he didn't. With 3 victories, 5 podiums, and a spectacular comeback in the standings, he took the title in his debut season. Kvyat was no longer just a promise. He was ready for Formula One. Kvyat's rise was impossible to ignore. Red Bull had their new gem. At the end of 2013, Mark Webber announced his retirement.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to enjoy the last lap.
It's Mark Webber's farewell, and thank you for the memories, just as he comes in to take second place.
That move triggered a domino effect within the team. Daniel Ricciardo took his place at Red Bull and left a vacant seat at Toro Rosso. At that moment, Helmut Marko had to make a decision. There were many candidates. There were drivers with more experience, with many more hours in single-seaters and at a high level. But Marko had a clear decision. He chose Daniil Kvyat, a very risky bet. At just 19 years old, the opportunity he had waited for his whole life finally arrived. But he had no idea what was coming, because this wasn't simply a seat at Toro Rosso. For Red Bull program drivers, Toro Rosso was a filter and testing ground. You either proved you were a future champion or you disappeared. So, at 19 years, 10 months, and 18 days old, Kvyat made his debut at the 2014 Australian Grand Prix and became the second Russian driver in Formula One history.
Daniil Kvyat, 2 former Grand Prix, 3 champions now racing in Formula One.
Everything pointed to his future being bright. Or at least that's what everyone believed at that moment. That day, his season couldn't have started better. In Melbourne, Kvyat wasn't intimidated. He qualified 8th and finished 9th, just behind his teammate.
Both Toro Rosso cars finished in the points, Daniil Kvyat and Vergne, just like Bottas with his Williams.
It wasn't just a solid debut, it was historic. With that result, he became the youngest driver in history to score points in a Formula One race, breaking Sebastian Vettel's record. The same man who, years later, would be part of one of the most iconic moments in Kvyat's career. But the Russian driver wasn't satisfied with that. In the following races, he kept scoring points in Malaysia, China, the United Kingdom, and Belgium. His pace was solid, his aggressiveness caught attention, and his popularity grew every weekend. But the most important thing wasn't the points. The most important thing was the comparison with his teammate. Vergne spent 3 seasons at Toro Rosso but never had a truly impactful moment. Meanwhile, Kvyat in his first year was already matching his performance, a situation that Red Bull was watching closely. Everything seemed under control and his path was set. 2 years at Toro Rosso, gain experience, establish himself, and then move up to Red Bull. It was a perfect plan until all of a sudden everything changed. No one saw it coming. After winning 4 world championships, Sebastian Vettel decided to leave Red Bull.
You surprised us this morning by announcing you're leaving Red Bull. How difficult was that decision?
Well, you can obviously imagine that it was a very tough decision. It's not that I'm unhappy. Obviously, I enjoyed every race I had there. We had an incredible time.
Officially, he said he needed a new challenge, but the real story was something else. Red Bull was in crisis with the arrival of the hybrid era. They were no longer dominating, and Ferrari was his best option to fight for titles again. Everything happened so quickly that Red Bull didn't have time to react. Marco and Horner needed a replacement immediately, and just like that, without any warning.
I am Daniil.
Overnight, Daniil Kvyat went from Toro Rosso to Red Bull, a huge leap. Until then, only Vettel had been promoted that quickly. That showed their confidence in the Russian, but it also meant something else. He wasn't going to have any margin for error. From day one, he would be under absolute pressure, and the questions were inevitable. Could he handle the pressure? Would he stay at Ricciardo's level? Everyone wanted answers, and they wouldn't take long to get them. But before you get the answers, subscribe. The start of the season was a nightmare for Red Bull. The car was a mess, the Renault engine had no power and kept failing. In Melbourne, Kvyat didn't even manage to start. The season couldn't have started any worse. After that initial blow, Kvyat and Ricciardo tried to save the unsalvageable. They scored points consistently, but Red Bull was far behind Mercedes, Ferrari, and even Williams. Yes, Williams. In that context, any good result was celebrated like a victory. Monaco was the first breath of relief. Kvyat finished 4th, his best result up to that point, and his teammate finished right behind him, in 5th place. But even on their best days, Red Bull was still far from fighting for victories. They went from being undisputed champions to a team that, if lucky, competed for the podium. And in Hungary, for the first time all season, Red Bull had a real chance. Mercedes lost ground, the incidents kept happening, and the race turned into absolute chaos. Amid the chaos, the Russian driver stood firm. At just 21 years and 91 days old, Kvyat made history as the second youngest driver to achieve a podium in Formula One.
For Daniil Kvyat, a first podium in Formula One. For Daniel Ricciardo, 3rd place. And Red Bull puts 2 cars on the podium for the first time in 2015.
Although shortly after, that record would be surpassed by the teenager who would end up ruining his career and his life. However, at that moment, everything indicated that Kvyat could be the next Sebastian Vettel. but the reality was very different. The podium in Hungary was a confidence boost, but it didn't change anything. Red Bull was still not competitive, and the second half of the season was just as frustrating. 2015 ended up being a year to forget, even though I was the best on the team in terms of points. Kvyat is remembered for two brutal crashes. The first one was in Suzuka.
He touched the grass in the corner. Completely a driver error.
And the second one in Austin.
Yeah, he hit too much curb at the apex.
But putting those incidents aside, 2015 wasn't a bad year for the Russian. Considering how disastrous the car was, his performance was pretty solid. He finished 7th in the championship and even beat Ricciardo by 3 points. Kvyat did everything he could with a Red Bull that simply couldn't give any more, but none of that mattered because his fate was already decided. Kvyat had more experience, more confidence, and Red Bull had given him a second season to prove he deserved that seat. Everything pointed to 2016 being his year, but what happened was the complete opposite. His goal was clear: to get podiums and maybe achieve his first victory. It didn't seem like an impossible task, but the big question was, could he do it? The answer came very quickly, and it was a devastating blow for the Russian. And if 2015 had been a disaster, 2016 managed to surpass it. Once again, for the second year in a row, Kvyat couldn't even start the first race in Australia.
There's a car stopped on the grid, possibly a Red Bull, maybe Daniil Kvyat.
But in Bahrain, there was finally some relief. He finished 7th while Ricciardo finished 4th. Everything seemed to be going back to normal, but after that race, Kvyat's life changed forever. In China, after a forgettable start to the season, there were finally signs of progress. Both Red Bulls managed to get into Q3, Ricciardo secured a solid 2nd place, and Kvyat took 6th. For the first time this year, everything seemed to be going well. Expectations were high, and if everything went according to plan, a double top 5 was possible. But when Sunday came, nothing went according to plan. Kvyat went from 6th to 3rd place in the first corner. Aggressively diving on the inside, the Ferraris got stuck, and Vettel and Raikkonen ended up touching. The result? Kvyat in 3rd and Vettel furious.
Yes, we made contact. I had no chance to avoid it. I had the Red Bull coming on the inside like a madman.
But for Kvyat, everything was going well. He held firm in 3rd position, didn't make any mistakes, didn't let the pressure get to him, and when he crossed the finish line, he achieved his last podium with Red Bull. Although at that moment, he still didn't know it. For Kvyat, it was a total celebration, but for Vettel, it was the complete opposite. In the cool-down room, the German was still furious. He couldn't get what had happened at the start out of his head. Kvyat, on the other hand, looked relaxed, as if nothing had happened. And then, one of the most iconic conversations in Formula One history happened.
Are you asking about the beginning? If I hadn't moved left, you'd have hit us and we'd all be out.
Well, I was...
No, none of that well. You came in like a torpedo.
Without realizing it, Vettel had just given him the nickname that would follow him for the rest of his career. That day, Daniil Kvyat became the torpedo. But what no one expected was that in the next race, he would live up to his new nickname. Because what happened in China was nothing compared to what was about to come. If Kvyat caused chaos in China, what happened in Sochi was even worse. Red Bull already had a plan, but in this race, Kvyat gave them the perfect excuse to carry it out. The Russian started 8th on the grid and once again made an aggressive start, but this time he went too far. In the first corner, he hit the rear of Vettel's car. The German lost control, but he was still trying to save the situation. However, he didn't have time, because in the next corner, Kvyat hit him again. Vettel couldn't believe it.
Oh, damn it. Who the hell? I'm out. I got hit. Someone hit me in the damn back, turn 2, and then someone hit me in the damn back again in turn 3. No way. Seriously, what the hell are we doing here?
Yes, he hit him twice in the same lap, ruined the German's race, triggered total chaos at the start, and the worst part is that he ended his own chances of scoring points. 2 accidents in 2 races, and from that moment on, doubts began to arise. Which driver would Red Bull have, the one who got podiums or the one who crashed in every race? Could Kvyat recover his level in the following rounds? We'll never know, because for Red Bull that was enough. And 5 days later, the news became official.
And I think the people around us will also be able to evaluate how much good work we're capable of doing under these circumstances. And I think it will be interesting to see who will be able to work better and harder in terms of bringing results.
The change divided opinions. It was, without a doubt, one of the most controversial driver changes in the history of the sport. For many, it didn't make any sense. Verstappen was extremely young for a Red Bull seat. For his part, Kvyat had just achieved a podium and suddenly he was being replaced by a guy who was only 18 years old. Even other drivers criticized the decision. Jenson Button made it clear on Twitter, seriously? One bad race and Kvyat is out? What about the podium in the previous race? Hashtag short memory. Usually when a top team swaps drivers mid-season, it's due to disastrous performance, because he's constantly making mistakes and costing the team points. But this time, it was different. Kvyat had just given Red Bull their only 2016 podium, and had outperformed Ricciardo in last year's championship. He wasn't the usual driver under pressure. But then why did Red Bull make this decision? Nothing seemed to make sense. Kvyat wasn't performing badly. Yes, he had made mistakes, but he was still achieving the team's best results. However, that wasn't the problem. The reality was something else. It wasn't about Kvyat. It was about Max Verstappen. And in the end, 2016 was going to be the Russian driver's last season with Red Bull, no matter what he did. The incident in Sochi was just the perfect excuse. In 2014, Mercedes tried to sign the young Dutchman, but Red Bull moved faster. They offered him better conditions, and most importantly, an immediate seat at Toro Rosso.
Here comes the new Formula One driver for the next season with the Toro Rosso team. Max Verstappen, welcome. You're a Formula One driver. How does that feel?
Yes. It's incredible.
Thus, Verstappen became the youngest driver to debut in Formula One at just 17 years and 166 days old during the 2015 Australian Grand Prix.
Max Verstappen, a rookie with Daniil Kvyat.
But his contract had a very important clause. If Red Bull didn't promote him to the main team in 2017, he would be free at the end of 2016. Ferrari and Mercedes were already interested in signing him. So, if Red Bull didn't make the change, Verstappen would end up in a rival team. But there was another key factor in the equation: Daniil Ricciardo. Yes, Kvyat had beaten him in points in 2015, but within Red Bull, Daniil was the chosen one. He beat Vettel in 2014. He had a stronger image for the brand, and his charisma made him ideal for Red Bull's marketing. Even after a bad 2015, the team was still betting on his talent. For Red Bull, Ricciardo was the present, and Verstappen was the future. The worst part of all is that Kvyat had just turned down an offer from Ferrari. A couple of Grands Prix before Verstappen's promotion, Ferrari offered him to replace Kimi Räikkönen.
He had just earned another podium for the team, but it felt different. And back then, also, I had an offer to race for Ferrari to replace Kimi, but it didn't happen. A lot of people don't know it, but that's what was going on behind the scenes.
In his own words, turning down Ferrari and then being demoted by Red Bull was a very hard blow to take mentally. But there was still hope for Kvyat. After all, Verstappen was just a teenager. He had never competed in a big team, and overnight he had all the pressure in the world on his shoulders. Was there a real possibility that he couldn't handle the situation? But what happened in the next race in Barcelona not only showed the world who Max Verstappen was, but also sealed Daniil Kvyat's fate forever. But before we continue, if you're enjoying this story and want to enjoy more like this every day, sign up for my newsletter at f1alcubo.com. It's completely free, and in less than 3 minutes, you'll receive incredible stories you won't want to miss. Every day you're not in is a story you miss forever. So now you know. Sign up now at f1alcubo.com. I'll leave the link in the description and in the pinned comment. The Spanish Grand Prix was Verstappen's first race with Red Bull. There were doubts, criticism, and skepticism about whether he really deserved that seat, but In just one weekend, everything changed.
Max Verstappen won a Formula One Grand Prix. He wins the Spanish Grand Prix, and he is the youngest driver in history to win a Formula One World Championship Grand Prix.
Max Verstappen became the youngest winner in Formula One history. At just 18 years and 226 days old, he achieved what seemed impossible, winning in his first race with Red Bull. An almost unattainable record and something that Kvyat could never achieve. With that victory, Helmut Marko and Christian Horner confirmed that they had made the right decision. And while Verstappen added 6 more podiums in the season, Kvyat only managed to score points on 3 occasions after his demotion. In 2017, Kvyat continued at Toro Rosso, but what was supposed to be his chance to redeem himself turned into another disastrous year. Carlos Sainz, his teammate, was consistently scoring points and established himself as the team's reference, while Kvyat only managed to score points once throughout the entire season. His situation was unsustainable.
The man they call the Torpedo seems to have done it again, from Paul di Resta.
Fighting for position.
Oh, and he hit another car as well.
The mistakes were piling up and his performance was no longer convincing Red Bull. Every weekend, it seemed more obvious that his time with the team was numbered. And after 2 seasons full of ups and downs, the final blow came. Toro Rosso replaced him with Pierre Gasly, who was then competing in Japanese Super Formula. They didn't even wait until the end of the season. Red Bull made it clear that Kvyat was no longer in their plans. And so his second chance in Formula One had ended sooner than anyone would have imagined. But if everything was falling apart on the track, at least his personal life was heading in a completely different direction. Between the end of 2016 and the beginning of 2017, Kvyat started dating Kelly Piquet, daughter of 3-time world champion Nelson Piquet. She worked as a social media and public relations consultant for Formula E, and she was well connected in the world of motorsports. Her relationship with Kvyat seemed solid, and despite everything the Russian had lost in Formula One, in his personal life, everything seemed to be going better than ever. Daniil Kvyat clung to any chance of returning to Formula One. Without a seat on the grid, he accepted a role as Ferrari's 3rd driver. A brutal irony. Years earlier, he had turned down the chance to join the team to stay at Red Bull. Now, after that same team destroyed his career, he ended up working in Ferrari's simulator, with no guarantee of racing again. But at the end of the year, his life took another unexpected turn. The Red Bull program was in total crisis. Toro Rosso needed an experienced driver, and out of all the possible options, they decided to bring back the same driver whose career they had destroyed. So, Kvyat returned to Toro Rosso for 2019. The big question was whether he could regain his confidence and rebuild his career. Surprisingly, the answer was yes. He came back stronger than ever, and it seemed like he had left behind the days when he was nicknamed the Torpedo. But 2019 not only brought changes to his career, but also to his personal life. That year, Daniil Kvyat and Kelly Piquet announced the arrival of their first daughter. Right before the German Grand Prix, he became a father.
I just got home last night and obviously went straight to the hospital to meet my newborn daughter. And it was truly amazing.
The day before the race, Kvyat flew back home and went straight to the hospital to meet his newborn daughter. It was a special moment, but what I didn't know was that the race I was about to run would be just as unforgettable. Hockenheim. 2019 was one of the most chaotic races in recent years. The rain turned the track into a mess and strategies changed every lap. But in the midst of all the chaos, Kvyat stood firm. After so many years of suffering, he did it. He came back from 14th place to the podium with a Toro Rosso that, under normal conditions, had no chance of fighting for a result like that. It was his first podium since 2016 and his 3rd in Formula One. A completely unexpected result. For Kvyat, this podium meant more than just a trophy. It was proof that he had talent, that he could still compete at the highest level. After being written off and humiliated by Red Bull, he made it back onto a podium. At that moment, it seemed like nothing could bring him down. He was back at his best, while also experiencing the greatest joy of his life, the birth of his daughter. And while Kvyat was rebuilding his career, things at Red Bull were falling apart. Verstappen was the undisputed leader of the team, but Pierre Gasly was not living up to expectations. His pace was inconsistent. He couldn't get close to Max either in qualifying or in the race, and his confidence was non-existent. And then the news that no one expected arrived. Red Bull made another driver change in the middle of the season. Gasly had been promoted too soon, and now the question was who should be his replacement? The logical answer was Kvyat. He had experience, had shown he could handle the pressure, and had just achieved a podium with Toro Rosso. But Red Bull did something no one saw coming. They chose Alex Albon, a rookie with only 12 races in Formula One, to take Gasly's seat for the rest of the season. It was a completely unexpected decision and hard to justify.
It was a shock. We finished the meeting and all that. Christian called me right away, and yeah, he basically just said, "Congratulations."
Kvyat had done everything possible to prove he deserved another chance, but once again, Red Bull set him aside. Not once, but twice. However, he didn't let that affect him, and right after the news at SPA, he came back from 19th to 7th place. A perfect response to Red Bull's decision. The season ended. Kvyat scored points in 3 more races, and Toro Rosso decided to keep him for 2020. But the following year would bring another unexpected twist. Yes, another one. Daniil Kvyat had overcome all kinds of obstacles in his career. But this time it was different. Between the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, his relationship with Kelly Piquet came to an end. It's not exactly clear when it happened, but the truth is that it was a devastating blow for the Russian. One of the few pillars that kept him standing after everything he had been through collapsed. And although he had gotten back up after several hard blows before, this time it was different. 2020 was a disastrous year for him. Meanwhile, Pierre Gasly is humiliating him. He was not only faster and more consistent throughout the entire season, but he also achieved something that seemed impossible: winning a race with AlphaTauri at the Italian Grand Prix.
Gasly wins the Italian Grand Prix! Oh my God! Isn't this incredible?
Oh my God!
What did I just do? What did you do? What the hell did I do? Let's go! Oh my God!
Gasly not only achieved with an AlphaTauri what Kvyat could never achieve with a Red Bull, but he also established himself as the undisputed leader within the team. The Russian was completely overshadowed. With each race, his Formula One future grew more uncertain. His performance was no longer enough to justify his stay at AlphaTauri, but the worst was yet to come. The final blows from which he could not recover and which led him to his tragic end. But before that, if you've made it this far, you're probably enjoying the video and you'll surely enjoy the stories in my newsletter, so subscribe. I'll leave the link in the description and in the pinned comment. If Kvyat's story already seemed cruel, what happened in 2021 turned it into a nightmare. In late 2020 or early 2021, Kelly Piquet and Max Verstappen made their relationship official. Yes, the same teenager who had taken his seat at Red Bull was now dating his ex-girlfriend. It was as if life itself was mocking Kvyat. Verstappen not only took his place in Formula One, but now he was also with the mother of his daughter. But as if all that wasn't enough, at the end of the season came the final blow to his career. Yuki Tsunoda would take his seat in 2021.
I'm very excited. I'm very confident that I'll drive well.
No place on the grid, no girlfriend. What else could go wrong for him? In a last attempt to stay in motorsport, Kvyat became Alpine's reserve driver, hoping to return in 2022. But while he was struggling to find a way back, Verstappen kept racking up titles with Red Bull.
And it will be the Dutchman in 2021. Max Verstappen is world champion for the first time.
And while the Dutchman kept winning on the track, he was also building a life with Kelly Piquet, raising Kvyat's daughter. The Russian, however, never returned to Formula One and sought opportunities in the World Endurance Championship. National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing and Formula E. The dream he had chased his whole life had slipped through his fingers. In 2024, Kvyat tried another chance in motorsport and competed in the hypercar category with Lamborghini. But history repeated itself. No podiums, no victories, no success. Meanwhile, Verstappen continued writing his own legend. 4 consecutive titles with Red Bull.
The Dutch driver will retain his crown. Max Verstappen is a 4-time Formula One world champion.
And in December came the final blow. Max announced that he was expecting a baby with Kelly Piquet. It was as if fate wanted to remind Kvyat who came out victorious in every battle. On and off the track, Verstappen had it all. Kvyat, on the other hand, lost absolutely everything. His career, his girlfriend, and his daughter. He fought against the system, against the circumstances, and ended up empty-handed. He had the talent, but never the right opportunities. But while Kvyat lived through hell, there was another Russian driver who had all the opportunities and advantages in the world. And in just one season, he proved that he didn't deserve them, becoming one of the most hated drivers in the history of Formula One. So watch this video and find out why Nikita Mazepin was much worse than everyone remembers.